You notice things other people walk past. The shift in someone's tone that signals they're not actually fine. The particular quality of light in a room before a storm. The way a piece of music lands in your chest before you've processed a single lyric. You feel the texture of your environments. The low-grade hum of fluorescent lights. The weight of a conversation that contains something unresolved. The way a crowd of strangers drains something from you that solitude restores. You have always been this way, and the world has had opinions about it. Too sensitive, overthinking, takes things too personally, needs to develop thicker skin. Here is what the science says. None of that is pathology, all of it is biology. And understanding what the biology actually is changes everything about how to navigate it strategically. Elaine Aron identified and named the trait she called high sensitivity, sensory processing sensitivity, in the early 1990s, following years of research into why approximately 15 to 20% of the human population processes stimuli more deeply and thoroughly than the rest. Her work, which has since generated hundreds of peer-reviewed studies and been replicated across populations, species and decades, established that this trait is not a psychological disorder, not a personality weakness, and not a socialization outcome. It is a biological variant, a genetically influenced trait that represents one end of a normal distribution in how nervous systems process information from the environment. The core feature of the trait, which Aron initially described with the acronym DOES, has 4 components. Deep processing. People with high sensitivity process information more thoroughly than others at both conscious and unconscious levels. Brain imaging studies show significantly greater activation in regions associated with integration and evaluation when sensitive individuals process stimuli compared to their less sensitive counterparts. Overstimulation. Because processing is deeper and more thorough, it also takes longer and uses more cognitive and energetic resources, meaning that under high levels of input, the system reaches its processing capacity faster, producing the experience of overwhelm that sensitive people are so familiar with. Emotional reactivity and empathy. The same deep processing that characterizes sensory experience also applies to emotional experience, producing stronger emotional responses to both positive and negative events, and a more pronounced capacity for empathy and emotional attunement. Sensitivity to subtleties. Sensitive individuals notice details in their environments, physical, social, emotional, interpersonal, that non-sensitive people reliably miss. The strategic implication of this profile is not simply that highly sensitive people need more rest. Though they do, it is that they are operating with a fundamentally different cost-benefit structure for stimulation and engagement than the majority of the population, and strategies developed for or by the majority will systematically fail to account for that structure. The highly sensitive person who tries to manage their life like their less sensitive peers, matching their social schedules, their tolerance for noise and conflict and complexity, their recovery needs, is not failing at adaptation. They are applying the wrong operating system to the wrong hardware. Judith Orloff's clinical work with what she calls empaths extends Aron's trait framework into the interpersonal domain with specific practical architecture. Orloff has worked for decades with individuals who experience not just heightened sensitivity to their own emotional states, but what she describes as a permeable boundary between their own emotional experience and that of people around them, a tendency to absorb emotional states from the environment in ways that feel less like observation and more like contagion. The clinical profile that Orloff describes overlaps significantly with Aron's research on high sensitivity, but focuses particularly on the energetic and relational dynamics, the specific ways that highly sensitive people tend to absorb stress from others, the difficulty in identifying whose emotional state they are currently experiencing, the particular exhaustion of social interactions that involve high levels of emotional intensity or need, and the chronic depletion that results from environments in which the boundary between self and other is insufficiently maintained. Orloff's contribution is primarily practical. She has developed an extensive clinical toolkit for helping highly sensitive people develop what she calls protection strategies, specific practices for maintaining enough boundary between their own emotional experience and the ambient emotional environment that they can engage deeply with others without being systematically depleted by the engagement. These are not strategies for becoming less sensitive, which is both impossible and undesirable, but strategies for using sensitivity selectively in ways that serve the person rather than exhausting them. Carl Jung's concept of introversion, and more broadly, his framework for understanding typological differences in psychological orientation, provides the deepest historical context for sensitivity as a trait. Jung identified introversion not as shyness, a confusion that has plagued the popular understanding of the concept ever since, but as a fundamental orientation in which energy flows primarily inward, toward internal processing, reflection, and the subjective experience of reality rather than outward, toward external engagement and the objective world of things and people. The connection to sensitivity is not that all highly sensitive people are introverts. Aron's research found that approximately 30% of highly sensitive individuals are in fact extroverted, but that Jung's framework helps articulate something important about the informational ecology of sensitive processing. The internal world of highly sensitive people is not simply louder than that of their less sensitive peers. It is richer and more complex, carrying more data about the environment, generating more associations and cross-references, requiring more processing time and more deliberate attention to manage well. The introversion that many sensitive people experience is, in part, a response to this richness, an orientation toward the internal as the natural home of processing, as opposed to the external as the site of performance. Jung also contributed the concept of the shadow, the aspects of the self that have been suppressed or denied because they don't fit the ego ideal. And for highly sensitive people, the shadow often contains the parts that the non-sensitive majority has told them they should be: tougher, less affected, quicker to move on, less affected by beauty, less interested in depth. The internalization of the majority culture's impatience with sensitivity creates a specific kind of shadow that operates as a continuous background narrative of inadequacy. You are too much of what you are, and not enough of what you should be. Working with that shadow, not by eliminating the sensitivity, but by revaluing it, is one of the central psychological tasks for highly sensitive adults. What does strategic self-management look like for a highly sensitive person who understands their biology? The first strategic domain is energy management. The highly sensitive nervous system operates at higher baseline processing load than a less sensitive one, which means that the management of stimulation, the deliberate regulation of input levels across the day, week, and environment is not optional self-care but genuine maintenance. This means treating overstimulation not as weakness but as a physiological reality, and designing environments and schedules that account for the recovery time that deep processing requires. It means recognizing that the periods of solitude and quiet that feel like luxury to a less sensitive person are, for a highly sensitive one, essential maintenance. The time in which the system integrates what it has processed and restores the capacity to process again. The second strategic domain is the calibration of relationships. Highly sensitive people tend to thrive in deep, fewer, high-quality relationships and to be disproportionately depleted by large numbers of shallow, high-stimulation interactions. This is not anti-sociality. It is a different optimal configuration for social engagement, one that the majority culture consistently fails to validate or even recognize. The strategic implication is to build a social life around depth rather than breadth, not because breadth is wrong, but because the cost-benefit calculation for sensitive people is fundamentally different, and a life designed without accounting for that will produce chronic depletion regardless of how much is. The person values social connection. The third strategic domain is the working environment. Highly sensitive people are dramatically more affected by their physical environments than their less sensitive peers, by noise, light quality, aesthetic coherence, ambient stress, the interpersonal dynamics of the people around them. The strategy of simply tolerating an environment that doesn't serve the trait produces chronic performance impairment, not toughening up. Designing or choosing environments that minimize unnecessary stimulation, or, when that's not fully controllable, building in sufficient recovery to compensate, is not accommodation of weakness. It is optimization of a different kind of processing system. The fourth strategic domain is the revaluation of the trait itself. Aron's research, and the subsequent research it generated, consistently shows that high sensitivity is not simply a cost to be managed. It is a trait associated with deeper aesthetic appreciation, stronger empathy and interpersonal attunement, greater creativity and insight, stronger conscience, and more thorough decision-making. These are not compensations for the difficulties of sensitivity. They are features of the same deep processing architecture that produces the difficulties. And cultures have historically relied on highly sensitive individuals for precisely these capacities. The challenge is not to make sensitive people less sensitive. The challenge is to stop managing sensitivity as a deviation from a non-sensitive norm and start designing lives that leverage the trait rather than constantly fighting it. The management of high sensitivity is not a project of becoming someone different. It is a project of understanding what you actually are with enough precision to stop managing it against itself. The relief of that, of finally having a framework that explains a lifetime of being too much for some environments and perfectly suited to others, is, for many highly sensitive people, one of the most genuinely useful experiences that psychology can offer. The next thread in this series examines the experience of feeling everything intensely, the specific neuroscience of emotional construction, how emotions are generated rather than simply felt, and what that means for the person who lives at high emotional intensity. That thread goes deeper into the biology that this one has begun to map. If you are a highly sensitive person reading this, there is one specific practical experiment worth trying in the next week. Audit one regular part of your schedule that consistently produces depletion rather than replenishment, and ask honestly whether the depletion is an inevitable cost of the activity or a consequence of the conditions under which you're doing it. The stimulation level, the relational dynamics, the timing relative to your recovery needs. The distinction between inevitable cost and avoidable design failure is where most of the leverage lies.